And let's now bring in Franco Terrazzano, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, into the conversation. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
So, Franco, what is your take on PSAC's demands here? They are seeking 4.5% wage increase year over the next 3 years.
Well, that's just the wages. You have to look at the total value of the benefits that they're pushing for as well. And the government has done that. And the PSAC is pushing for up to 47% compensation increase over 3 years, which would cost taxpayers $9.3 billion. So make no mistake about it, if the government gives in to these unfair, unaffordable, and unsustainable demands, it would mean a big tax bill for so many people in the private sector who are struggling, who are worried about their mortgage payments, who are worried about affording the price of gas or groceries. So look, the PSAC, they're pushing for up to 47% compensation increase, and that would be a multi-billion-dollar hit to struggling taxpayers.
But Franco, just before I came to you, we had a reaction coming in from a regional leader of PSAC in Ontario who was telling us how for years they haven't seen an increase. And of course, as you and I know, cost of living in the country, inflation is hurting all Canadians. So why do you say this is unreasonable?
Well, that's just factually incorrect. We've got numbers from the government through an access to information request that shows that 312,000 federal government employees received at least one raise during the pandemic. We know that the federal government handed out $559 million in bonuses since 2020. And we know that the federal government has added more than 30,000 federal government bureaucrats over the last 2 years. So here's the real situation. You have taxpayers who have paid for hundreds of thousands of raises, hundreds of millions in bonuses, and have paid for tens of thousands of new government bureaucrats. And now you have government union negotiators who want billions and billions and billions of dollars more from taxpayers who, quite frankly, are struggling. For the private sector workers who lost their job over the last couple of years, who took pay cuts, and also for many small business owners who may be worried about losing their business in a looming recession.
So, Franco, let's talk about what the government is offering now. The government is saying they're ready to give a proposal of 3% wage increase over the next 3 years. In your understanding, how much will that cost the Canadian taxpayer?
Well, that's a good question, but we actually need the government to push back even further, because let me outline just some of the non-wage benefits that the PSAC is pushing for. Quite frankly, if most Canadians went to their boss with these types of demands, we'd be laughed out of the office. The PSAC is pushing for a shift premium if you work past 4 p.m. So they're saying, hey, if we work past 4 p.m., even in an office job, we want more money. They're also pushing for a taxpayer-funded contributions into a union-controlled social justice fund so they can partake in particular advocacy. They want an education fund of up to $17,000 for laid-off employees. They want 4 weeks of vacation after only working 4 years. They want 2 weeks of paid time off. They want overtime paid at double time. So it's not just the wages, but the non-wage benefits are very costly. And quite frankly, they're out of touch, they're unaffordable, and they're unsustainable.
Okay, one last question to you. This is impacting, of course, several services, CRA with tax returns being one of them, then the border services included. With the delay in tax returns, what is going to be the likely impact on Canadians?
Well, there's a few different things here, right? So number one, the implied threat from the tax union employees has always been taxpayers pony up a bunch of money that you don't have and can't afford, or you may not get your money back at tax refund time. Now, that's so out of touch because so many taxpayers are struggling right now to afford groceries, to afford gas. But hold on a second. Let's talk about those services, because subpar services from the federal government has become the rule, not the exception, for quite some time. So the biggest impact here that taxpayers would face would be a multi-billion-dollar tax burden increase if the government gives in to the PSAC's unaffordable and unsustainable demands.